The murder of George Floyd 1 year ago, of course, sparked important and often uncomfortable conversations about race and racism across the country. Tonight, we speak with Dr. Ibram Kendi, historian and best-selling author of How to Be an Anti-Racist Baby, and Stamped Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. He's now adapted Stamped for Kids, aiming to help young readers identify and stamp out racist thoughts in their daily lives. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Kendi.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be on the show.
So you want everyone, including children, to talk about race. Let's take a listen to a clip from the audiobook of Stamped for Kids, narrated by 9-year-old Peyton Rain Kem Jackson.
You may have been told not to talk about race, or been made to feel like you can't, as if it's some kind of bad word. But it's not. It shouldn't be. It can't be. Until we learn to talk about race, the poison of racism won't go away.
You know, people always say that kids don't see color. I've always thought that that's wrong, that kids do see color. They just don't tend to assign a value to it. Often it's adults who do that. My question to you is, how do you tailor your message to the younger audience while also keeping kids engaged in the very heavy topics that you often tackle in your book?
I think what was beautiful about Sonia Cherry Paul and the way she adapted this book, like Jason, adapted the Stamp Jr., is that they used language and they used experiences that kids can understand. They really met kids where they are. But what's also beautiful about kids is they have a moral clarity. And if you explain that something is wrong, they're going to want to know what it is, and they're going to want to know. They're going to want to know how to be a part of the efforts against it.
And you've certainly been a leader in the anti-racism movement. Would you say that since the death of George Floyd a year ago, more Americans have become anti-racists?
Well, I do think that more Americans are aware of the existence of racism. I do think more Americans are realizing it's hard for them as adults to have these conversations, to see and understand the problem. And I do think more people are aware that young people need to understand about racism, that the earlier we learn it, the earlier we'll be learning anti-racist ideas as opposed to growing up and having to unlearn so many ideas. And I'm hoping this awareness turns into action.
And you just mentioned the idea of the critical race theory in schools. You're obviously a big advocate for that. The idea is to understand and expose how racism is deeply embedded in American life and work to root it out. Were you surprised by the intense backlash to these teachings, which have become such a political flashpoint?
I was surprised in the sense that, why now? Why at this point? This is something that many courageous teachers have been teaching their students, just as they're teaching them, and they feel they need to be prepared for the world by understanding math or understanding science. They understand they must understand racism. But then again, with the growing awareness of adults, and when you become aware of racism, you also become aware of those who are behind racism. And so if you want to continue to project yourself as not racist, you're also not going to want people to understand racism, especially young people, because young people are not going to hold their tongue, and they're going to tell you as it is.
I want to go one step further with that, because critics of critical race theory often say that too much focus on race becomes divisive, that it's not age appropriate for younger children, and that it can send white children the message that they're guilty just because of the color of their skin. I would assume that you would disagree with that, but are any of these concerns reasonable?
So let's think about this. We live in a society where certain people have more and other people have less. And typically, Black people have less. What are we teaching our children about why, let's say, Black people have less? Are we specifically teaching them that people do not have less because they are less? Are we specifically teaching that Black girl that there's nothing wrong with you because of the color of your skin? Are we specifically teaching that white boy there's nothing right about you because of the color of your skin? Because if we're not teaching those anti-racist ideas, if we're not teaching them that the problem is bad rules, not bad people, then what else are they going to think about all the racial inequality in our society? And so to me, not teaching our kids about race and racism is actually divisive.
Bad rules, not bad people. Lastly, on this milestone day, May 25th, just want to ask, do you feel like this country is moving in the right direction when it comes to exposing and stamping out racism?
So my research has actually found that throughout the course of history, we've been moving, a segment of this nation has been moving in the right direction, seeking to recognize the equality of difference, seeking to spread opportunities and resources for historically oppressed and marginalized people. But what's also been happening at the same time, and we're seeing this now, is there's been a move to simultaneously make it harder for people to vote, to make it harder for people to learn about race and racism in their schools, to make it harder for people to live healthy during a pandemic. And so really both are happening, and it's sort of this clash that always has existed, really, in the soul of this nation.
Dr. Kendi, we thank you so much for speaking with us. And Stamped for Kids, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You is now available wherever books are sold.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.